I can tell you the exact moment everything inside me shifted, quietly, like the soft snap of a string pulled too tightly for too many years. It happened on a warm Saturday morning, sunlight spilling through the windows, the kind of morning that looks peaceful but feels like a prelude to something breaking. Dad had called Liam and me into the living room saying he had important news. His voice had that tone, the one that always made my stomach knot. Not because I feared him, but because I already knew, deep down, that whatever mattered to him would never include me. Liam sat on the couch, spinning a basketball between his fingers. He always looked relaxed around Dad, comfortable, chosen. I sat on the edge of the armchair, my palms damp, legs pulled close. I wasn't nervous. I was used to expecting the worst. Dad walked in with a folder tucked under his arm. He didn't smile at me, he rarely did. But he smiled at Liam, clapped him on the shoulder and said, "You're going to like this." Liam looked up, curiosity brightening his expression. "What's up?" Dad opened the folder and pulled out a card, a glossy business card with golden edges. Then he said the sentence that cracked the air in two. "I hired you a private coach." Liam blinked. What?" Dad lifted his chin with pride. "The best one in the region. Former pro, expensive as hell, but worth every dollar." My breath caught. A private coach? The thing I had begged for since I was 13. The thing Dad dismissed every time, telling me it wasn't necessary or worth the cost, or something we should waste money on. Gymnastics was my world, my passion, my dream. But Dad always said it was a hobby, something I'd grow out of. But Liam? He played basketball for fun. He wasn't aiming for college recruitment. He didn't even go to every practice. But Dad still proudly announced the investment like he was unveiling a masterpiece. "That's incredible," Liam said, stunned. "Are you serious?" Dad grinned. "Of course, you've got potential, son. Real potential, and I want to give you every advantage." Something heavy settled at the bottom of my stomach. Then Dad turned to me, not with pride, not with excitement, just irritation, as if my presence interrupted the celebration. He looked straight at me and shrugged. "You wouldn't have benefited from training anyway, Grace. Not everyone's worth that kind of investment." The words sliced clean and cold. I froze, every inch of me going numb. Liam stopped spinning the basketball. His smile faded, replaced by discomfort. Dad waved him off. "I'm not being cruel. I'm being realistic. Liam has talent. You have enthusiasm. That's different." He laughed lightly. I didn't. My throat tightened, heat crawling up the back of my neck. I wasn't angry at first. I was humiliated. He could have said nothing. He could have kept his reasons to himself. But he wanted me to hear it. He wanted me to know. "You're not worth training." 6 words. 6 words I knew would echo inside me for years. I didn't cry in front of him. I never cried in front of him. But something inside me twisted so sharply I felt like I might tear apart. Mom appeared in the doorway at that moment, holding a dish towel. She must have heard everything. Her eyes were wide, hurt, furious, but she stayed quiet. I could tell she wanted to say something, but Dad's presence always tied her voice into knots. I stood up, not trusting my voice. "I'm going to my room." "Don't be dramatic," Dad said coldly. "If you focused half as hard as your brother, maybe this would be different." I walked away anyway, keeping my face stiff so he wouldn't see the crack forming beneath it. In my room, I shut the door softly, sank to the floor, and finally let my chest collapse inward. Tears blurred my vision as I pulled my knees to my chest, trembling with a mixture of pain and humiliation. Not worth training. Not worth improving. Not worth investing in. He said it with such certainty, like it was a fact written in stone. I heard a soft knock on my door. Mom's voice whispered, "Grace." "It's me." I wiped my face quickly. "Come in." She closed the door behind her and sat beside me on the floor, pulling me into a hug so tight it felt like a cast around a broken bone. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. You didn't deserve that. I shook my head, choking back another wave of tears. Why does he hate me? She pulled back, cupping my cheeks. He doesn't hate you. He's blind and stubborn, and he only sees what he wants to see. But you are extraordinary, Grace. You always have been. A sob escaped my throat. If he thought I was worth something, he'd try, he'd support me, Mom shook her head firmly. Listen to me. Your worth has never depended on his ability to see it. I swallowed hard, my voice small. Then why does it feel like it does? Mom inhaled deeply. Because he spent your whole life making you feel that way. She brushed a tear from my cheek. But that changes now. What do you mean? She glanced toward the door, as if checking whether Dad might appear. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. It was old, yellowed slightly with time. I wasn't going to show you this yet, she said softly. But after what he said today, you deserve the truth. I stared at the envelope. What is it? Proof, she whispered. Proof that your father hasn't just ignored your worth, he's stolen from it. My breath hitched. Stolen? Mom nodded with a sadness that made my heart clench. Yes, Grace, there are things he hid from you, things he hid from both of us. She held out the envelope, her hands trembling slightly. Inside, I felt the first shift, the quiet rumble of the truth beginning to crack open. I took the envelope with shaking fingers and slowly, carefully, I opened it. The envelope felt heavier than it should have. It wasn't thick, but something about the way Mom handed it to me, carefully, almost protectively, made it feel like I was holding something fragile and powerful at the same time. My heart pounded as I slid my finger under the flap and pulled out a stack of papers. Old papers, some wrinkled, some slightly faded, all of them carrying a story I never expected to read. The first page was a bank statement. My name was printed at the top. Mom, what is this? I whispered. She took a painful breath. It's an account your grandmother opened for you when you were born. She wanted to make sure you had something for your future. College, training, whatever you needed. My throat tightened. My grandmother had always been gentle, warm, the kind of woman who looked at me like I mattered, truly mattered. She died when I was 11, but I still remembered her eyes, her soft hands, her voice telling me I would grow into a force, whatever that meant. I looked at the numbers again. Years of deposits, consistent, steady, a future built just for me. Then, suddenly, the deposits stopped. Mom pointed to the bottom line. That was the balance when you were 16. My jaw dropped a little. It was a lot of money, more than I'd ever seen in my life. But then I flipped to the next page, and my entire world lurched. The account had been drained. Every dollar removed, disappeared. The withdrawal was dated 2 weeks before Liam's private boarding camp the summer he was 16, an elite basketball camp my father claimed he had scraped together the money for. I remembered that camp. I remembered Liam coming home with new gear, new shoes, new videos of himself practicing with pro-level players. I remembered Dad telling me he barely made it work and that I should be grateful he sacrificed so much for our family. My hands trembled as I read the amount withdrawn. All of it. Every last cent. Then, the part that made my blood run cold. The withdrawal slip had a signature, my name, except it wasn't my handwriting. Not even close. A tremor ran through my body. Mom, I breathed. He forged it. Mom's face twisted with grief and anger she had carried inside for years. Yes, Grace, he did. Another page slipped from the stack, an email printed on paper, dated almost 5 years ago. I recognized my father's email address immediately. Mom closed her eyes, bracing herself. Read it. The email was short, chillingly honest, cruel in its simplicity. Liam has potential, real talent. Grace doesn't. It makes more sense to put everything into him. Don't argue with me about this again. My breath shook. Every reason he ever gave me for why we couldn't afford training, Every time he dismissed my dedication to gymnastics, every moment he told me I wasn't serious enough or strong enough. It wasn't about me. It was about the decision he made long ago. Liam was worth investing in. I closed my eyes as a wave of nausea rolled through me. Mom placed her hand on my back gently. Your grandmother knew he favored Liam. She saw the way he treated you even when you were tiny, so she left safeguards. She knew, Grace. She knew he might try to take what wasn't his. I swallowed, my voice barely there. And he did it anyway. Mom nodded, her jaw tight. He did. Something deep inside me, something that had always been small, quiet, timid, began to burn. A slow, simmering fire. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was betrayed. I was furious. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't ashamed of that anger. I stood up, gripping the papers like they were proof of something I had felt my whole life, but never had the courage to name. Does Liam know? I asked. Mom shook her head. Not yet. I need to tell him. Mom didn't stop me. She didn't say to calm down. She didn't say to think. She simply nodded, because she knew I deserved the truth, and so did he. I found Liam in the backyard, shooting hoops like he did whenever he needed to clear his head. The rhythmic thump of the basketball hitting the concrete matched the pounding in my chest. Liam? I called out. He caught the ball mid-air and turned toward me. His expression softened when he saw my face. Grace, are you okay? I didn't answer. I handed him the first page, the bank statement. He read it. Confusion flickered, then concern. What is this? Keep reading, I said. He did. His eyes widened with every line. He flipped to the withdrawal page, then to the forged signature. When he saw the email, his breath hitched. Dad wrote this? He whispered. Yes. He lowered the papers, staring at nothing, his mouth parted in horror. He took your money? He spent your inheritance? On me? I swallowed hard. You didn't know. But still. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. Grace, this was supposed to be yours. A future your grandmother wanted for you. I know. He looked at me then, truly looked at me, and something broke in his eyes. Not anger, not denial. Guilt. Deep, painful guilt. I'm so sorry, he whispered. You didn't do anything, I said. He shook his head fiercely. I didn't want any of this. Dad should have supported both of us. Not chosen one child like the other didn't exist. His voice cracked. For a moment, we were just two broken pieces of the same story, trying to make sense of the damage someone else caused. Then the back door opened. Dad stepped outside. What's going on out here? He asked, irritation already thick in his tone. Liam's jaw clenched. He held up the papers. The hell is this? Dad's expression flickered, just for a second, before he forced a scoff. Old paperwork. Taken out of context. Don't look at... Did you steal her money? Liam snapped. Dad stiffened. I used it for something worthwhile. My heart hammered. Something worth more than my future? I shot back. Dad glared at me, but there was no power behind it now. No justification that didn't crumble under the truth. You wouldn't have used it responsibly, he said bluntly. And you would have wasted money on training that wouldn't lead anywhere. I made a smart choice. A smart choice. He said it like he was proud. Liam stepped forward, fury shaking his voice. You chose to invest in me and ruin her. You chose to believe in me and write her off. Dad rolled his eyes. Don't be dramatic. No, Liam said, voice low and shaking. You're the one who's been dramatic, your entire life, every time it came to choosing between your kids. Dad opened his mouth, but Liam cut him off. I'm not your golden child anymore. Silence fell over the backyard. Dad's face turned to stone. But I wasn't scared anymore. For the first time, he couldn't hide behind his authority, his excuses, his lies. The truth was out, and there was no going back. Dad stared at Liam as if he couldn't recognize his own son anymore. The confidence he always carried, the authority he wore like armor, had begun to crack. For the first time in my life, I saw something in him I never thought possible. Fear. He opened his mouth, trying to gather the arrogance he used to control us with. "You're blowing this out of proportion," he snapped. "I did what was best for this family." "For the family?" Liam repeated, voice trembling with disbelief. "Or for the child you decided was worth a future?" Dad glared at him. "Don't twist my words." "You twisted our whole childhood," Liam said. Something inside me ached at his voice. Because it wasn't just my story. It never had been. Dad shook his head with an annoyed exhale. "You're both being emotional. I invested in the child who could succeed. That's what parents do." I stepped forward. "No, parents support all their children. You supported one?" He scoffed. "You expect me to waste money on, what was it? Flips? Cartwheels? You were never going to be anything in gymnastics, Grace." The cruelty in his tone, the certainty, was so sharp it nearly stole my breath. But it didn't break me this time. It fueled me. "You don't get to decide what I become," I said quietly. "You don't get to measure my worth just because you lacked the imagination to see it." Liam stood beside me. "She trained every day, Dad, alone. Without help, without encouragement, without a single dollar invested in her. And she still got further than anyone expected." Dad rolled his eyes, but Liam wasn't finished. "You invested in me because it was easy, because everyone else praised me, because coaches told you I was good. Supporting Grace meant you had to believe in something that wasn't obvious. And you never had the heart for that." Dad's jaw clenched, chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. "You're talking back to me," he growled. Liam didn't budge. "I'm talking truth. Whether you can handle it or not is your problem." Dad's face turned red. "I am still your father. And I'm still your son," Liam shot back, "but not your puppet." Dad looked between us, realizing he no longer held control. Not over Liam, not over me, not over the narrative he had built for 18 years. "What did your mother tell you?" he demanded. "She always puts ideas in your heads." Mom's voice cut through the yard, firm and clear. "I didn't put anything in their heads, Michael. You did." Dad spun around. Mom stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her expression fierce and unyielding. "She didn't manipulate them," Mom continued. "You did, for years. You controlled the money, the opportunities, the choices. You decided who deserved what, and you thought we'd never question it." Dad's face twisted. "I provided—" "No," Mom said, stepping outside. "You controlled. There's a difference." He pointed at her angrily. "You're turning them against me!" She shook her head. "No, you did that all by yourself." The silence that followed was suffocating. Thick, heavy, final. Dad tried to speak again, but the words stuck in his throat. I realized then that he wasn't fighting for us. He was fighting for his illusion of control. "Grace," he said, his voice suddenly soft and poisonous. "You don't want to ruin your relationship with me over something you misunderstood." I stared at him, and for the first time in my life, I saw a man, not a father. A man who made choices, a man who preferred convenience over fairness. A man who gambled one child's future to strengthen another. "I understand perfectly," I said. "You didn't think I was worth your time, or your money, or your belief? That's not misunderstanding, that's clarity." Liam nodded, stepping even closer to me in solidarity. Dad's eyes burned, not with rage, but with the realization that he had lost the one son he thought he owned completely. He tried one last time. "I worked hard for that money. I get to choose how it's used." Mom straightened her back. "No, Michael, you don't. Not anymore." She held out the printed documents, everything the lawyer had prepared, the forged withdrawal, the inheritance violation, the financial breach. Dad's face went pale. "How did you—" "I met with a lawyer," Mom said calmly. "He has everything, every transaction, every email. Every document your mother left behind. Dad swallowed hard. You went behind my back? You forged your daughter's signature behind hers, she replied sharply. I'm done protecting you from the consequences of your own decisions. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. You need to leave, Mom said quietly. For the night, for the week, for as long as it takes for you to understand what you've done. Dad's breathing turned shallow. You can't kick me out of my own house. It's our house, Mom said simply, and right now you're not welcome. Liam's voice cracked through the silence. I'm going to. Dad looked at him, betrayed. You're choosing her over me? Liam shook his head. I'm choosing what's right. The simplicity of the statement stunned all of us. Dad's eyes flicked between us, searching for control, for fear, for obedience. He found none. He grabbed his keys, jaw tight, shoulders trembling with the anger of a man whose world was finally slipping through his fingers. This isn't over, he spat. Mom didn't flinch. It is for today. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows trembled. But the house didn't. The house exhaled. 3 months later, life didn't magically perfect itself. But it became ours. The weight that once clung to every inch of the house dissolved. Mom smiled more often, not forced smiles, but real, quiet ones that hinted at rediscovered strength. Liam and I grew closer, not out of trauma, but out of truth. He apologized again and again, not because he owed me, but because he understood me for the first time. He supported me, came to my practices, sat quietly in the bleachers watching me try new routines. Sometimes he clapped too loudly on purpose just to make me laugh. And Dad? He stayed away, not because he was forbidden, but because he didn't know how to exist without control. One afternoon, Mom brought me a sealed envelope, old, yellowed with time. It's from your grandmother, she said softly. My breath hitched as I opened it. Her handwriting flowed across the page, warm and steady. My Grace, if you are reading this, then the truth has been revealed. Remember this. Your worth is not measured by the support you receive, but by the strength you show when others refuse to see you.